Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing great on this lovely Wednesday. I'm really excited to invite you to have you here for our webinar today, Building Pathways to Economic Stability for Families. We have a wonderful featured speaker and a really exciting and inspirational conversation for you all. So I see people are starting to filter into the room slowly. I'm going to kick us off, get you all comfortable on the platform, and we will get things started. So my name is Olivia Harp, and I am the Program Manager for Network Building here at Prosperity Now. Again, I'm really excited to welcome you to today's webinar. Just a few housekeeping tips. So this webinar is being recorded, and it will be mailed out to you all so that you can continue to revisit the content and get inspired again and again. All of our webinar attendees are muted to ensure sound quality, but again, you have that Q&A box that we want you to use to reflect, submit questions, share best practices, and just connect with us and the other people on today's webinar. And if you have any issues at all, please email us at gotomeeting@prosperitynow.org. As always, we want you to get the most out of today's call. So we want you to join from a quiet place, grab a coffee or snack and settle in. We want you to, again, engage us in the Q&A box. Talk to us. We want to hear from you, whether it's a question or a comment. And always reflect on ways to apply this to your everyday role. And so to get us acquainted with one another as well as the Q&A box, I'm going to ask you to go to the Q&A box and just introduce yourself. Say who you are, where you're joining from so that we can see who's in the room with us. And we'll continue to peruse that box to get to know you all and get to learn a little bit more about everyone that's on today's call. But while you are introducing yourself in the Q&A box, I'm going to hand things over to the moderator today, Keyshawn Harris. He is our Associate Director for Community Impact. Keyshawn, thank you so much for leading today's conversation, and I'll kick things over to you.
Thank you, Olivia. Hello, everybody. I'm Keyshawn Harris, Associate Director of Community Impact and Network Engagement here at Prosperity Now, where my portfolio includes our Tax Opportunity Network, as well as our Children and Family Support Networks, focusing specifically on our Children's Savings Account portfolio, as well as our Baby Bonds portfolio. We're excited today that you all have joined us for our pilot program of our weekly learning opportunity series, where we bring in practitioners and professionals from in the field who are doing impactful work, who have different tips and tricks on how to stand up programs in your communities. And so today I'm delighted to be joined by one of my good friends, Colleen Quint, who is the president and CEO of the Alfond Scholarship Foundation. Colleen has served as the president and CEO of the Alfond Scholarship Foundation since 2014, bringing over 20 years of experience working in education. At Alfond, Ms. Quint is responsible for the strategy and operations of the program that invests $500 scholarships for college on behalf of more than 12,000 Maine children every year. Impact. Ms. Quint began her career as an education law consultant, working for foundations specializing in scholarship programs and investment, education access, and economic development. She also was the founding executive director for the Senator George J. Mitchell Scholarship Research Institute, where she established a clear focus on student success through scholarships, personal support, and career exploration. She also relied on research and advocacy to advance the Institute's larger public policy mission of educational attainment and economic growth. Ms. Quint is a graduate of Bates College and the University of Maine Law Schools. She has been a longtime resident of Maine, and she is also a member of her town's budget committee and a former member of its school committee. Again, we're so delighted to have you with us today, Colleen.
Well, thank you, Keyshawn. Yeah, it's great. It's great to be here, and thank you so much for the invitation to join folks today. I always love to do this kind of thing with Prosperity Now and all the many different organizations and individuals we all interact with, and I'm happy to have a chance to share some information about some great things happening in Maine.
Absolutely. And for our audience, just to give you a little a level set, today we're going to start with our fireside chat with the president and CEO, and then we'll transition into some questions from the audience. So please elevate those questions in the chat. Colleen, so I want us to level set for the team and just tell us a little bit about the Alfond Scholarship Program.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, we invest $500 at birth. There are Maine's, big state geographically, small population-wise, about 1.3 million people, about 12,000 babies born a year. But we've been at it long enough that there are now 163,000 Maine kids with an Alfond grant, with a total of over $500 million invested when you count the seed money from the foundation, family contribution to their own accounts, matching grants, and growth in the market. About 557 million at the close of 24. And the oldest of our scholarship recipients or grant recipients are now sophomores and juniors in high school. So we're getting pretty close to getting money out the door for these kiddos, which is a super exciting moment for us to be in.
I love that. And so the program started around 2008 as a pilot.
That's right. 2008 was a pilot year, just at one hospital, just to kind of make sure we had all the things set up the right way. 2009 through 2012, we went
Mhm.
statewide, but we were an opt-in model, and families were required to open a NextGen account, which is Maine's 529 plan, by the child's first birthday. About 25,000 Maine families did that, which was awesome, but not nearly as many families as we hoped to reach. So, starting in 2013, Maine babies are now automatically awarded the grant.
Automatically enrolled versus opt-in. So when you look at that data, do you feel as though programs structured with automatic enrollment receive better outcomes instead of as opposed to those with an opt-in model?
Yeah, we really do, and it's really interesting, Kishan, because the not only now we get everybody rather than like everybody has the grant rather than just the opportunity to have it, which was really
Mhm.
important to us. The other thing is we see among family savings behaviors, though about 35% of our families overall have opened their own companion account to make contributions, and the contribution rates for the opt-in families are actually lower than for the universal families who open accounts. So the theory is that when people were opting in, they open an account so that they could get the Alfond grant because they didn't want to miss out on that $500. But now that it's automatic, when they open an account, they're doing it so that they can make their own contribution. So it's almost a 75% contribution rate from those universal grantee families.
That's incredible. And you all are
Yeah,
close to almost delivering over $1 billion in investment.
half a billion,
Half
half a
a billion.
billion.
Well, we're speaking it into existence. Half a
Exactly, exactly.
billion
Hey,
dollars.
in Maine, trust me, man, in Maine, that is a lot of money. So we're pretty excited about the difference that's going to make.
Absolutely. And so for our practitioners on the call, they've been keenly interested in what types of strategies have you found most effective in increasing that participation when you transition from the opt-in model to the
Mm.
automatic model, and then from the pilot program in 2008 to the full-scale model. What strategies have you found successful in increasing that participation?
Yeah, great question, Kishan. And certainly the first thing is that move from the opt-in to the universal or automatic enrollment. For those who are thinking about developing a program, that would be the key program design recommendation that we would really make. Start with the automatic enrollment. The other things are like one of the things that we've noticed is that the more that we can demonstrate to families that other families like them are part of this and are engaged, the more it resonates with them, right? And so whether that's through our social media and collecting photos of families with Alfond grants that they've shared with us that we can then use, so they're kind of authentic photos, right? They
Mhm.
don't look like the cut and paste from a, that you would buy, that kind of thing. And then also, like, we have ambassadors in communities in Maine so that they're from the communities where we're trying to reach families. I think that really makes a difference in engagement. And then trusted partners, and I'll talk more about this probably in a minute, but having trusted partners who are the kinds of organizations that families are already interacting with and already know, and having them carry and amplify our message means they're hearing about the program from someone they know and trust, and they're like, oh, this is a real thing for my kid. I heard about this, but I wasn't sure if it was real, and then when they hear about it from their Head Start program director, or see a poster in their doctor's office, or any number of their employers, any number of different places, it really kind of reinforces that.
And I love that you touched on that because I come from a healthcare background
Mm.
where we looked at the model of, addressing social determinants of health, how you make sure that a person, whether it's a child or an adult, has the opportunity to live their full potential. And so I love that you call out those trusted partners and community ambassadors because, we can enter in community and say, hey, here's a great program that you need to sign up for. And people are a little receptive. They're like, oh, okay, here's somebody else, a
Yeah, yeah.
foundation coming in and trying to save the day. But I think what I'm learning from you all is that you all are yes, the leading foundation on this in Maine. However, you're giving the tools to the community for them to activate their own networks.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of describing it, Keyshawn. And I think that those, we work with hospitals so that families hear about the Alfond grant literally right when their child is born. We work
Mm,
with really basically every program in the state that is interacting with families with young children. So Head Start programs, libraries, K-12 schools. We're beginning, as our kids are older now, working with post-secondary institutions, organizations that work with older students. In Maine, that might be Boys and Girls Club, or it might be 4-H. It could be a number of different things. State agencies. We have over 100 Maine employers that share information with employees about the Alfond grant, even give them an opportunity to make contributions to their own accounts through payroll deduction. So those partners are really really super important to our. We're a staff of 2.5 people, and which is not uncommon. Most organizations that have CSAs have a pretty small staff, but we
mm,
still manage to get a lot of touch points, so to speak, with families, both through our own communications as well as through these partnerships. One other thing I just wanted to mention on the communications side, and maybe you were about to ask this, Keyshawn, but we try to make sure we're in front of families on a regular basis, right? And so, we have tools and resources on our website. We have a Facebook page and Instagram and all those kinds of things. But I think one of the most important things that we do is every quarter, starting when a baby is about 9 months old, we send a communication out to families that is personalized to that family with the mom's name, the child's name, and it shows them the very specific value of their child's Alfond grant, right? That $500 is invested in the market when the baby is born. And what we're able to do then is track the value over time for all the babies born in that same month and year. So a family might get what we call the Alfond grant update that would
mhm,
say it would be to, like, Alyssa Jones at whatever her address is, and then Tommy Jones is the child, and it will say, Tommy's Alfond grant is now worth $627.14. And then share some other information about the grant, ways to be engaged, how they can update their contact information, tools and resources we make available, all those things. And we know from talking with families that when they get that communication, it's like, oh, right, we like, there's this
mm,
money that someone else believes in my child, believes that they have value. There's already money there. I can see that it's growing and changing over time. They'll take it, they'll tack it up on the refrigerator so that they
right.
can kind of be a reminder and a conversation starter within the
Mm.
family. There's just a lot of really neat ways that that kind of communication, which also then encourages families to open their own accounts and contribute, but not a requirement of the program, but something that we hope a lot of families will do.
Awesome. That's incredible. And one key piece of that is, when you're connecting with family, not every family has a foundational level of knowledge on financial empowerment, financial education. So is that also a part of you all's equation in making sure that families understand the full equilibrium of the problem and the
Yeah,
program?
Yeah, that's a great, again, another great point, Keyshawn. We know that families come from a variety of backgrounds, not just kind of demographically and socioeconomically, but in terms of their kind of levels of financial literacy. So
Mhm,
there are certainly a number of resources that we provide on our website. For us, one of the most important things is our partnership with FAME, the Finance Authority of Maine, which
mhm,
is a quasi-state agency, and FAME helps to administer the program, and also has a robust range of financial literacy tools that they have available. We'll often direct families to resources that FAME has. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? But that's a wonderful partnership, and we do things together, like ASF and FAME together. We have an initiative we do in Maine elementary schools called Invest in Me Kindergarten, where there are
mm.
3 or 4 modules that we've created for kind of off the shelf projects that teachers or even parents can do with the children over the course of the year. We have an Invest in Me Reads that's a FAME initiative that we're partnering with to share information about financial. The reading is about financial literacy, and there's information about the Alfond grant, so families can make the connection between this money that's been invested for their child and the ways that they're thinking about the child's future.
Wow, it's incredible that you all also have the buy-in from that quasi-government agency. And so for practitioners who are looking to start their own CSA programs, could you describe how you went about getting that type of partnership with the government agency? Because that is boosting the work that you're doing in partnership.
Oh yeah, we couldn't do it without FAME for sure. And so there are two main reasons that we work with FAME. One is because they also administer NextGen, Maine's 529 program, and I don't know if I mentioned, but like 90% of CSA programs around the country use a 529 platform.
Hmm.
And so that again, not wanting to reinvent the wheel, we're like, great, NextGen already exists. We're going to do that. FAME administers NextGen. Let's see if they can help administer our program. The other is that as a quasi-state agency, it was easier for them to enter into the agreement with the state Department of Vital Records to get that birth record data because we fund at birth.
Hmm.
And so and there are ways in which we could have done it, but again, that already existed. And so again, not reinventing the wheel, going with what was already in place and kind of the lower hanging fruit. Those were two different reasons. Plus, they're very experienced at this. They do again a lot of great financial education, so it made sense all around. And it's
I love
Maine, so we all know each other already, so that also made it easy.
I love that. And so leaning into that, are you able to share any examples of successful state or community level initiatives that are also supplementing the work that you all are doing?
Oh yeah, gosh, there are so many different ways. I've already spoken about the different kinds of partnerships that we have. I thought maybe I'd take just a minute and share some things that are happening in some other states and their CSA programs that could be
Cool.
of interest and really great models for some of the folks on the call today. So for example, in Massachusetts, they had their CSA program is called Baby Steps, and they have these what they call enrollment hubs where they have folks who have been trained and can be in community and working with families to help them sign up. They have a SNAP into Baby Steps program, so they're working with families who have SNAP benefits, so they get additional bonuses into their accounts. With that, Cal Kids. So California has a statewide program. So we think it's awesome having a statewide program in Maine. I can't even wrap my head around how they do it in California because it's
Cool.
such a big place and they have a multifaceted program. They have a super innovative thing they're doing with Covered California, which encourages families around back on this not just the social determinants of health, but like actual healthy starts for kids. So when
Mhm.
families go in for well child checkups and/or vaccinations for their kids, they get additional deposits into the Cal Kids account as an incentive there. And then New York City Kids Rise has a really fascinating model where there's a lot of funding that's done from within communities. So alumni of a particular public elementary school in New York or the residents of a particular housing unit will all put together resources to raise additional funds to go into the accounts for those kids. So those are just three or four other ways that programs like ours are doing some of those things we're doing, some we're not, but they're just all wonderful ideas and programs sort of figure out what are those different models or strategies that work best for them.
Yeah, and you got my gears going. I forgot in your introduction to mention that you are a national thought partner on CSA work, and you have led some incredible movements and initiatives. One in particular has been your engagement on the American Opportunity Accounts, and sharing those feedback with those federal legislators. And so I just want to take a moment to see, do you know of any emerging trends at the federal or state level that you're seeing across the field about how we can support and expand access to CSAs?
It's a really exciting moment, Keyshawn, and I know the world around us is crazy and ever shifting, like,
Yes.
day by day, if not moment by moment. But it's been really fascinating and encouraging and heartening to me to see the many ways in which CSA programs are actually continuing to develop and even build further momentum. And that's at the local level, at the state level, and even nationally. Last spring, I had the great privilege of testifying in front of the U.S. Senate Finance Committee on 401 Kids, which was the Bob Casey bill that had been introduced, which would have provided funding, at birth for kids across the country, which is just a really an extraordinarily exciting opportunity. Lots of things in shift, but still lots of things in play. And so, we'll kind of see how those. There are a lot of folks who are continuing to pay attention and have a finger on the pulse of that and continuing to work to inform those conversations and those decision makers. I think the other big thing that's about to happen is dispersals are going to be happening very soon, right? So our oldest kiddos, like I said, are 16, 17 years old right now. So about another year and a half, and we're the first big kind of statewide program to be at that spot. So there'll be a lot of eyes on Maine in
Hmm.
terms of what those outcomes look like. California already, because of the way they designed their program, already has dollars going out the door. The kindergarten to college program in San Francisco, which is a city-based program, founded right around the same time as we were. So Jose Cisneros and I'd love to talk about, kind of the similarities and the differences between our programs in a uh, teasing competitive kind of way with each other.
Hmm.
But they started at kindergarten, so their kids are already graduating, and they're collecting some fantastic data about the impact that the $50 that they invest at kindergarten has made in terms of high school graduation, pursuit of education after high school, and a number of other really exciting outcomes. So it's super, super exciting and great to see so many things still happening in this space.
Yes, the field is still very much active and making an impact.
Yeah.
And just to double back to the Alfond grant, and so young people, once they turn 18, have the opportunity to use those funds for higher education, and that also includes career and technical college. Are there any other uses that they can use the funds for?
Yeah, well, and this is a great tie-in to the policy question you asked a minute ago, Keyshawn. So yes, anywhere a 529 can be used, these funds can be used. And so that would be all kinds of education after high school. Basically, if the program is eligible to receive Pell Grant funding, you can use it there. So they don't need to continue to live in Maine. They don't need to go to school in
Mhm.
Maine in order to have the grant in our program. But yes, so training and certificate programs, as well as associate's degrees and bachelor's degrees, apprenticeships are included. And Senator Amy Klobuchar has now, this is the third time she's introduced the Freedom to Invest in Tomorrow's Workforce Act, which would expand the uses of 529s even further to include industry credentials and licensure.
Mm.
And so we are super excited about that because we want kids who are graduating high school with an Alfond grant to be able to have as many options as possible in front of them. And so we're really working with members of the Maine delegation. Susan Collins, the Maine
Mhm.
senator, has was an original co-sponsor in each of the three iterations of the bill. It's had tremendous bipartisan support, and it's something that a lot of folks in both the CSPN, the College Savings Plan Network,
Mhm.
is a strong endorser of this as their top policy priority, and it is also for like the National Manufacturing Association and the landscape architecture. Like there are like 90 different trade associations that
Mhm.
want to see funds, and that would include funds in CSA programs that are invested in 529s. And so that's a piece of legislation that we're paying attention to and really excited to see come to fruition.
And even as we are in this AI boom, a lot of young people are interested in getting those types of certifications. And so being able to use this type of funding to have a level up on someone and go and get a Google certification or something in AI is very helpful and puts our young people on a path to success. And before I get the last few questions, I just want to say that we have about 5 minutes left for our discussion. So please continue to share those questions with us in the chat and we'll elevate them. And so, Colleen, I know we've talked a lot about some of the foundation of the program and the foundation of CSA work in the state of the field. I want to shift a moment and ask what types of challenges have you and your organization encountered, or what types of challenges do CSA programs encounter, and are there any potential solutions for practitioners on this call that are looking to avoid some of those pitfalls?
Yeah, I think the challenges are really mostly the kind of the challenges endemic in our society, Keyshawn, to be honest, right? So I think everyone who hears about these programs thinks, wow, what a great thing this is, right? The challenges are cutting through the clutter and the busyness of people's lives to make sure we stay on the radar, particularly for families that are most vulnerable. I
Mhm.
think making sure that we have good contact information for families so that we can do everything we can to stay in front of them. That's where those partners come in handy for sure. That's really important. I think lowering the barriers to entry for those programs that want families to take the step of either, like in some states it's automatic, but you need to take a step to claim the account
Mhm.
or to register for it. The money's there, but they want the families to kind of engage, and that gives them that platform. And I think there's lots of different strategies people are using for that. We know that there have been great changes in the 529 industry over the last 4 or 5 years in particular, where they've made applications simpler and more
Mhm.
streamlined. They're lowering the amounts of the initial contribution. In many cases of CSA programs, there's no initial family contribution needed if they open their own account. The seed grant from the Alfond money, for example, goes proxy for a contribution from the family. So those are some things that have been happening and are great. There's always more that can be done to make it easier and simpler for families. And I think
Mhm.
those are really the challenges more than um, anything about the programs themselves or people not thinking it's a good thing. Broadly speaking, certainly the value of higher ed, the
Mhm.
kind of that value proposition is something that gets a lot of attention. But we know from talking with families that as long as you're kind of positioning it as let's keep all doors open for your child, whatever they decide to do. They're going to be captains of their own destiny. They get to figure out. No one's trying to put them in a lockstep into a 4-year degree, right? Um, but we want them to be ready to pursue whatever it is they decide they want.
Mhm.
And we're ready to help them when they do that. So those are the kinds of messages I think that are super important and really helpful to families.
And I like that the way you framed it, and I'll take it a step further and say that, when we look at the long-term impact of CSAs, families have said time and time again that it gives them a little bit more breathing room. It alleviates some of that anxiety about how do I make sure I'm prepared for my child's future. And so, from your perspective, what other things do you see as long-term impacts of CSA programs in our country?
Well, I think certainly the vision of Mr. Alfond when he founded this program was that it would have an impact on the micro level, by which I mean on individual students with the Alfond grant and the opportunity that might bring them, but on the macro level for really the future of the state's prosperity through a more educated workforce. Think
Mhm.
about that on a national scale as all of these that are now, 120 CSA programs in 39 states, thinking about those multiplying all, kind of all across the country or even a national program. I think the other thing, and we don't talk about this in the field enough, is generational impact, right?
Mm.
These kids who are growing up and from birth have some kind of investment in them that we hope changes not just their aspirations, but their behavior so that they're more likely to pursue education after high school, which means that they're more likely to earn a living wage and have the kinds of benefits that come with that. And that they are then going to have better financial stability, right, as they begin their own families as they grow. So that generational impact, I think, is really very, very much part of a long-term view that I think will really be profoundly impactful at the family level, community level, and societally.
Awesome. Yeah, that was very helpful. And I hope today's conversation was as fruitful for you as it has been for me. I've learned so much from you over our time connecting, Colleen, and really appreciate the work that you and the Alphon team are doing each and every day for our young people. And so, a few tidbits that I've heard from our conversation today is about the power of partnership, the power of making sure that we are able to communicate the importance of these programs in language that folks who will be utilizing them easily understand. The importance of also making sure that you understand that there may be challenges, but you can rise to those challenges and be successful. And we're also excited that we're about to start seeing our first young people being able to utilize these funds to set themselves on a path for continued success, and making sure that we are elevating the things that make them shine. We had a question in the chat. Let me see if I can pull it up. From La Solano Patron. I would like to know if there are any plans for expansion, interstate, or on the quest of economic empowerment and equity. So we're looking to know if there are any plans for expansion within the state or outside of the state for the Alphon grant.
Yeah, so the Alfond grant really is focused specifically on the state of Maine, and I don't imagine that that's going to change from a program perspective. But we regularly work with and learn from programs throughout the region and throughout the country. So there's a group that I worked a number of years ago with the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston in creating a regional consortium, the Northeast Consortium of CSAs. We have quarterly meetings. They used to be in person back in the day. Now we
Uh,
do three a year via Zoom and one in person in Boston each year. But the that Nexa collaboration is a wonderful peer learning space where programs can talk about ways to learn from each other, sometimes collaborating. Massachusetts has a statewide CSA program. They have a statewide baby bond program. There are city-based CSA programs. So they're talking about all the ways to kind of make sure those programs are working together. And if Luz wanted to, she's certainly welcome to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to kind of dialogue via email and answer any additional questions, or make some connections if that would be helpful.
For sure. And then one additional question is, I'm planning to start a small CSA program. Do you have any tips for scaling up?
I think the quick tip I would say is that even if you start small, if you're thinking of scaling up, like plan for that at the beginning. In other words, when you're thinking about who's the audience, who's the stakeholders you most want to work with, who are the students you most want to serve, how are you going to connect with them? The scaling up really grows from how you start, but anticipating that, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but anticipating that to say, okay, I'm going to build this database, for example. Right now, that database might hold 50 names of kids from a particular local kindergarten class or something.
Mm-hmm.
But if over time I want to make it bigger, what's the kind of information I would want to have now that I could build on? So I want to know how, kind of the students and how to contact them and what school they're at right now and things like that. So I think just anticipating that future build as much as you can, even if you're starting, let's say, with a pilot or starting small, because it's inevitable that it will grow, because it's such a great thing that people really want to be part of it.
Thank you, Colleen. I
Sure.
think that was our last question in the chat. Again, thank you all so much. Thank you to Colleen, Olivia, for your time today for our fireside chat to talk about building pathways to economic stability for families. This is the first of many, many, many more conversations that we'll continue to have. Again, thank you, Colleen, and your team for the impactful work that you do. For our folks that joined the call today, please feel free to go to prosperitynow.org to learn more about our CSA work, to learn more about how you can get involved and join our networks. And we look forward to our next learning conversation on next Wednesday. Again, thank you all and have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Colleen.